So don't act like a fool, and you might be kinda cool through the eyes of Kirblog. Welcome back. This is the second half of my top 10 South Park favorite episodes, video favorite episode, South. So I've just gone through 10 through 6. This is 5 through 1. So picking up where we left off, I was talking about Mr. Hanky the Christmas Poo, Jubilee, Good Times the Weapons, the Coon Trilogy, Cartoon Wars Part 1 and Part 2. And next up, number 5 is the Black Friday trilogy from a couple seasons ago. This is again, interestingly, I mentioned that I did a Kirblog 2 whole years ago now, close to it, I believe, about the finale to season 17, which was about the Hobbit episode, not Lord of the Rings Hobbit, but the Kardashian Hobbit with the Wendy episode. I did a whole Kirblog about what was the deal with that. But before that, the lead up to what was supposed to be the lead up into the Stick of Truth story with the Black Friday episodes, the 3 of them, I was enjoying the absolute shit out of those. By this point in time, I was definitely following the episode from season to season. So I think I had joined back in, I want to say season 15. I was following every episode from week to week. So actually for the last 4 years, kind of in tandem with when Tome was kind of beginning. And yeah, I was really I was getting a big kick out of it. And you know, obviously there was the console wars happening and everything with the 2 systems. And of course I was like, oh, I'm getting my Wii U over here, you know. Yeah, once again, just actually in this case, I think this is one of those ones where, oh, this is something that is legitimately a lot bigger than just they're making it out to be, because like similarly like the Lord of the Rings episodes where they're trying to get they're trying to return the video back to Blockbuster or whatever, the video store. And in this case, like, yes, they're acting everything out. It's all play pretend or whatever, but there is something a lot bigger that's like the Coon Trilogy was the same kind of way. And weirdly, I think I put this one above the Coon Trilogy just because like the jokes were a little better. The character development was a little bit more in depth and interesting and everything. Not to say that the Coon Trilogy was like better or worse at all. I think that I just personally liked these a little bit more, weirdly. Can't quite describe it, but and you know what? Funnily enough, maybe I should even go back and rewatch them again, because I have not watched them since they first aired. So unlike the Coon Trilogy, which I've watched multiple times because I wanted to, I have not done that with this triplicate of episodes, but I should do that. But either way, I really enjoyed them as they were airing. I remember it was a huge like event, kind of watch them as they were unfolding on TV, and also in the fact that there was the delay as well. I forget if that was the power outage or whatever. I don't remember if that was what happened with that, but either way, yeah. So that was a big that was a big event, and I really enjoyed those. So moving on. Okay, number 4, breast cancer show ever. Okay, so this is one of the episodes that I actually went back and I watched way after the fact, when I knew that I'd missed a lot of key episodes that had been airing at the time. Again, I was seeing ones air every once in a while, just whenever I happened to catch them, but again, was not keeping up with it until season, what did I just even say? Season whatever it was. 15 was airing. That was when I started like actually following the show from episode to episode each week as it was airing. But either way, this is one of the ones that I sought out and watched on my own time because it was a Wendy episode. I do think that I said this on the Hobbit Kirblog that I did about the Hobbit South Park episode. Wendy is weirdly one of my favorite characters in the show. She doesn't like annoy me as like, oh, boo, Wendy Testerberger, boo, or whatever. And I don't find her like obnoxious and like with the activism type of thing or anything at all. I don't know. I find her an intriguing character, and weirdly, as you'll see, some of my favorite episodes on this list, especially in these top 5, are ones that involve her. I think the most like raw, like easy way for me to describe why I like this one is because not even just that it's Wendy doing it, but just the fact that Cartman gets the ever-loving shit beaten out of him at the end of the episode is probably the most like visceral reason as to why I love this one and why it's so high up on the list. Cartman is a character that I love to hate. I don't hate him as a character. I hate him as a person in the context of the show. So when he gets his, it's extremely fucking satisfying. I don't know if that's necessarily always the case, if that's like what it's intended to be. I don't know if everybody always agrees with that, because I know that most people just enjoy seeing Cartman be a self-indulgent asshole. And Cartman being a self-indulgent asshole is incredibly funny and very entertaining. But I also like seeing him get his comeuppance. It's incredibly fucking amusing. And that whole episode of just like, I can't believe you were this much of a piece of shit that you're actually doing this. Similarly, just as kind of like a sort of runner-up to this space, the Sissy, I think, also deserves fair praise for addressing a similar type of issue of not like in terms of like, placing one more importance over the other. One is about cancer, one is about gender identity issues, both incredibly important and serious topics in their own right. But they both address the similar kind of issue of a person trying to use something that is very not good at all, in terms of like something that can be a serious issue or a problem for another person that really needs help or really needs to figure themselves out or whatever, what have you, in both the cases of those two serious subjects. Somebody taking that subject and using it for self-indulgent purposes, and it's fucked up, and they absolutely deserve their comeuppance for it. So basically, the whole kind of dynamic of Wendy versus Cartman in both of these episode plots was extremely cool and very satisfying to me, and those are personally why I have these up on here. That is entirely just like a taste thing. That's why I love that kind of stuff so much. So yeah, this when I went back and I watched this episode, I think because that's right, I was saying I was looking for what are some key Wendy episodes that I haven't seen, and this is one that came up, and I was like, oh, I like this, and so I watched it and I immediately fell in love with this one. So this a lot of these became like instant favorites, like when I watched them. Similarly, was number 3, one of the most recent ones. Number 3 is Safe Space from this most recent season 19 of South Park. At the time of recording this, there are still 2 episodes left in the season that have not aired yet, and they're not going to be coming out until December. And December I have plans for, so that's part of which why I wanted to do this now instead of waiting. But while every episode of this season has, I feel like, increasingly been getting better and more and more and more poignant. Xander Mobus, who's been following it, he kind of put it this way. The point of this whole season is like every episode seems to be tackling a different modern day example of both like don't be a dick and taking things to an extreme and being a dick about those things. I've been loving this trend of like having an overarching story with each of the seasons, like not just with the trilogy episodes and things like that, but just in general having like a long ongoing story with each season, trying to tell some kind of bigger point by the end of it, I guess. So I'm very curious about where the season is going to go. But that aside, the reason that I have this one up here is because Safe Space it particularly tackles an issue that I have had for a while about what I kind of feel about folks on the internet who, really, really, really want to like shield themselves from the world outside them, and they only, it's like, I don't even really have to say anything. All you need to fucking see is the reality character's speech at the end. It says better than I could ever say in my life anything about the subject of just people, especially people on the internet, who do not want any negativity in their lives whatsoever. It's like, all I'll really add to that is like negativity is going to exist everywhere. It especially exists on the internet because of how internet culture has just kind of evolved people. It's there. It sucks. I have experienced it firsthand. I know exactly what it's like. I know what all of the people who were feeling victimized in that episode felt like. I've been there. Not with like fat shaming or anything like particularly like that, but I know the feeling of like, being ridiculed and picked on, etc. from the internet. I've been around the fucking block. I know what that feeling is like. And no, it's not great, but it's like, this is how life is. This is the reality. It's not a fucking college liberal arts, campus or whatever, however you described it. This is one where like, if you haven't seen it, please just watch it. And although I'm sure if you're probably getting this far, you've probably already seen it and hopefully love it as much as I do. But yeah, this one became an instant fucking favorite when it aired. Like it's definitely so far, even though there's still 2 episodes left in the season, it is definitely my favorite of this season thus far. How strange and funny is it that like I both hope that the next couple episodes of the season that haven't aired yet are going to be even bigger and better, and at the same time, I hope that they're not, so that I don't look like an idiot and then want to have one of those 2 episodes on my top 10 list. But either way, if it does, I'm sure I can fucking live with that. It's just funny. But either way, so moving on. Okay, we're up to number 2. This is a big one. And it's another tie of 2 episodes, kind of like a number 6 with Cartoon Wars Part 1 and 2. My number 2 is a tie, because they both go hand in hand, between episode 200 and 201 for multiple reasons. So this was at the time when I was going in and watching a lot of episodes that I had not seen before. Again, I jumped back on with season 15, and then I was going back and watching a lot of episodes, particularly that I wanted to see from the earlier seasons. And as I'm sure people who probably know the controversy surrounding these 2 episodes know, at the time, you couldn't see these episodes on the South Park website, and actually you still can't. They're still not up there, and they probably never will be. You can only see them on DVD. So for a basic kind of reason is seeing all of the old, especially the season 1 jokes being revisited about, like, Cartman's mom, or rather Cartman's dad, I should say, as well as Barbra Streisand and Pip and all these things. Revisiting a lot of that stuff, from a fan's perspective was really, really fucking cool just to see that, But going further than that, when I later, of my own accord, did all the research that I had to catch up on in terms of what happened with the whole controversy with that took them to a whole new fucking level. And knowing that 201 in particular was censored, and, not by Matt and Trey, knowing that it was not some fucking in-joke or whatever. It was not like, oh, we're doing this on purpose or whatever, just to own the fact that this is happening or whatever, was incredibly fucking intriguing. And I remember when they did the Super Best Friends episode where they had the Prophet of the Muslim Faith as a character in it. I distinctly remember that episode because I had seen that in the early days. And I also remember, I forget if it was in Cartoon Wars or if it was another episode that had the Family Guy kind of joke or whatever, but like, oh no, they're going to show the Prophet of the Muslim Faith. When they had that whole thing going on, I remember that, and I remember that controversy unfolding at the time. And I remember seeing news reports there was an interview with the guy that was in charge of the basically pro-terrorism group that was operating out of New York. And he lived right in the same fucking city I was in for 4 fucking years and throwing hate speeches in Union Square or whatever it was. Yeah. And then to find out years later after all this shit had happened and what I'm saying is I love these 2 episodes because of the continuing story outside of the show that occurred with them. They're amazing episodes and they're so fucking funny and so badass and cool and have a great intriguing story to them. And the story that takes place in our real world in tandem with them that was continuing on for years, where the guy that was interviewed in those same things, who happened to be the guy that was behind the attacks and sending people after Trey and Matt and putting their addresses online and trying to get people to get back at them and all this shit, getting arrested. And then also, I remember it was the weekend that I was at the Running Gag convention. I think it was right after we recorded the Kirblog with Kira Buckland and Brie Lauda and Adam Tilford. I found the uncensored speech of Kyle's that was in the 201st episode. And hearing his original words was still incredibly powerful. And to know that was what was censored, when again the Prophet of the Muslim Faith of the Muslim Faith's name was never mentioned once in that entire speech, but it was all censored anyway out of fear from Comedy Central. Like, it's so incredibly intriguing and has so much staying power. Like, it literally had staying power in how prevalent it was and everything going on, inside and outside of the show. It was just so fucking cool to see all that. And following that story, both in the episodes itself and outside of it, was just awesome. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I love those 2. And that's the reason why they're so high up on this list. Probably a little weird, definitely a personal choice. Maybe they're not, in retrospect, the greatest episodes ever, but for all of that together, they hold a very, very special place for me, just completely for myself, I guess. So now that I've rambled about that episode, or those episodes rather, for fucking 5 minutes, longer than probably any other one I've talked about so far, Let's go to my number one favorite episode of South Park. It might surprise you. My favorite is The List. So this was a random episode that I happened to see in my first year of college. I was rooming with Mike Lucas, and we were just getting settled into New York and everything. The new episodes of what I believe was season 11 at the time were airing, and I don't think this was the finale, but it was I think it was one of the later ones. Either way, The List came on, and I think I even saw the commercial for it because we had cable in some basic cable in our dorm. But the episode came up, and I was like, "Whoa, what's the deal with this?" And so I started. I watched it, and I was just immediately sucked into it. By that point, again, I had not fully gotten back into South Park and started catching up with episodes again by this point. This was way before that, but I did know that Wendy had broken up with Stan, and she had dated like a few other characters by that point. I can't remember. I think she dated Token at some point, and somebody else maybe. I forget exactly, but either way, I know that they were broken up. And in this episode, definitely I'll admit from the self-indulgent side, the shipping aspect of it was definitely like, oh, this is cute to see the two of them working together again. But the reason that I love this, the main reason that I love this episode so much and why it is my number one is I feel like personally this is like the perfect South Park episode because once again, like I was wording in the 10 through 6 video before this, it's taking a childlike, like stupid, whatever, immature concept, girls rating boys from ugliest to cutest, etc., and making it into like a whoa, like super big deal, bigger than you could possibly imagine kind of thing. But in addition to that, or rather in tandem with that, the point that they make about like how kids treat each other and how they are and everything is so fucking great. It's so strong and it's so universal in what it means that it's just great. Like, I love it. And it gives just about... And that's the funny thing. Kenny is my favorite overall character. Kenny's barely in this fucking episode. He has, like, one line, which is just going, woohoo, I'm not the ugliest kid in the school. And Cartman's barely in it as well. Like, he's around just kind of for a gag or two. But weirdly, an episode about Stan, Kyle, and Wendy, like, their main focus, is amazing. And the fact that they made such a great episode out of, like, something with those three characters... and one that was so incredibly like powerful to me. Like it was actually surprising to me how much I liked it. Like because I knew that I liked Stan and I liked Wendy and everything, but just seeing how this one unfolded and just like how crazy it got by the end of it. Great jokes as well, as you'd expect. And this is one that I think I've probably watched maybe in competition with Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, just from back when I watched it so many times with my dad. I think I've probably watched this episode the most. Like in total, because once every like year or so, like or a couple years, whatever it is, I'll go back and watch this because it's still so great and I fucking love it. So that's it. Those are my top 10. And also, I suppose I should give some other shout outs. I do have a partial sort of like, oh cool, to gluten-free Ebola. Mainly because I actually got to go to South Park Studios while they were working on that episode, and I got to watch Mona Marshall record, I think, the only line that she had in that episode as one of the faculty staff or whatever, but either way. That, and then, of course, also the movie is amazing, but again, I treat that as a separate thing. Trapper Keeper, the new Terrence and Phillip movie trailer is great. Bebe's Boobs Destroy Society is fantastic. Preschool is really funny. You're Getting Old and Asperger's was what got me back into the show. Not my favorite episodes, but they got me back into it. I mentioned the Sissy, Poor Kid. Lots of great ones. There's so many. I would never be able to list them all, but there's a bunch. Those are my top 10 for now. Maybe it'll change. Maybe I'll feel differently in another year, when Fractured But Whole comes out and maybe when this season finishes up, whatever's going to happen with the next 20th season, which is crazy to think they're already up to 20 fucking seasons of the show already. But that's it. So I guess that's going to wrap us up. Thanks for listening to both of these parts of the experience. So in the comments below, tell me your favorite South Park episodes. It doesn't have to be a top 10 list necessarily, but give me your favorites and why. I'm curious. Are there any on my list that you agreed with that you really like that are maybe some of your favorites or anything, any particular thoughts about this season, anything that you want to express about the show in general? Let me know. And if you have ideas for future Kirblog topics, leave a comment about that too, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, anything you feel like. And don't have a plan for next episode, so maybe I'll go back to taking, finally, after all this time, another user submitted topic because I haven't had one of those in quite a while. But yeah, and we're getting close to the 2-year anniversary of Kirblogs. So look forward to that, and thank you all for sticking with me. And I'm also getting close to 100,000 subscribers, which we might be able to hit by the end of the end of the year. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I will see you all next time. Catch my